Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Cornell. Grab a cup of coffee, join me, and let's talk about robots v. people. So I'm saying robots v. people today because let me kind of break this down to you in three areas. One is kind of a little bit of his history and background and story of robots, maybe some of the business aspects of robots, and then what we might want to be concerned about, not necessarily a dark side, but maybe some cautionary notes. So look at the history. It kind of goes back to, there was a legend of John Henry. John Henry was a steel driving man. John Henry was great at being able to produce, being able to lay railroad track. A strong black guy, used to do those jobs very well. John Henry was in a race against a machine and lost. He won the race, but he expired and lost his life as a result of that. So you start looking at robots now, and they're playing more and more of a role in our lives, to the benefit in many instances, right? So you think about it. If you have one of the various listening devices, which I fondly refer to them as, that may be around your home that's telling you what time it is, when to wake up, favorite music to play, etc., those devices are making your life easier. They're almost replacing, if you will, service staff or someone personal assistant in that regard. Those are great positive benefits of them. Certainly, we can't overlook the prospect of the robots that are participating in military operations and those in hazardous areas going into nuclear power plants or other hazardous areas where a person would really be exposed trying to go into. Robots are fantastic in those environments. But when you think about all those things in total, there's also, and more specifically, which is one of the cautionary notes, there's a business aspect of those. I'll cover that now. Years ago in manufacturing, they were just getting started with very preliminary and kind of rudimentary robotic activity, cutting things, lathing things, etc. Now, almost any manufacturing facility you see has a number of areas that are being performed by robots. Much more complex, much more capable, much finer, higher tolerances than perhaps ever before, or even available by a human to be able to do. You also look at it and recognize that they play a role in so many different ways in regards to manufacturing, in regards to the way in which we conduct our business. Of course, computers being the biggest machines out there that are having implications. Think about how you go through toll machines. Those are now being handled, used to be jobs, those are now being done through robotic capabilities. And with the advent of the robotic capabilities, which is, I would consider being the more mechanical components, then combined with the artificial intelligence and those being the software components, the possibility and the potential of the future is amazing. Also, just look at it from a medical perspective. There, in fact, are a number of surgical procedures now that, with the assistance of a surgeon, are being done and performed by robotic arms. I've had an aunt who had pretty serious surgery. It was done primarily by a robotic capability, surgical device. When you put those things together from a business standpoint, it talks about less cost overall, higher efficiency, more capabilities, and higher tolerances, which in fact is kind of what business is trying to get accomplished all the time. So let me talk about with those positives and where it fits in business. Let me cover for you some of what I consider as being the exposures of this new world of robotics. Remember a few moments ago I mentioned to you about those listening devices, i.e. personal assistant devices that are in your homes? Well, there's really no rules or laws as to what information that can be used for, right? I think it's a little bit of an exposure. When you start looking at operations in manufacturing facilities, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone to invest in your business and you told them, oh, we're going to hire 1,000 people and there aren't going to be any robots associated with that. You might not get the money for that deal. As we start looking at this whole combination of the roles in which robots are playing in our world, I think there's things we ought to keep in mind is that, one, what happens when there are more jobs being produced by robots than we need people for? That's a consideration. what happens when we start looking at and thinking about, oh, here's all this information that's coming available. Who has control of the information that occurred in your house? That's a good question, I believe. When we start having all the capabilities what robots can do, we have robots in supermarkets. Well, theoretically, they're just taking care of stocking shelves and telling you what the new price is for the sale items. But the opportunity is for them to be used in different ways that may not be only to our advantages. So think about that. As we're moving forward, recognizing that the march of technology is here to our benefit, it has been to our benefit, I'm benefiting, you're benefiting. However, what are the limits, and are there any guardrails that we're putting in place in order to what? Protect ourselves and protect ourselves from the robots. Thank you for joining me today. Next time you have a cup of coffee, think about that. We'll see you again on Coffee with Cornell. Friends, I want you to like, subscribe, and then hit the bell for notifications for future episodes. Come on, help me out, and it'll help to make Coffee with Cornell even better for you.